Order, April 17th, 2025. This meeting is being streamed live for the public to attend and recorded as a public record. Recording of the meeting will be available at www.northcarolinawildlife.gov. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Joe Budd, to lead us in the pledge of allegiance. Please stand and take the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And at this time, I would like to recognize Commissioner Will Seegers to provide our invocation.
Thank you. Everyone bow their head, please. Oh Lord, as we gather here today, we give thanks for your guidance and recognize through you the hope and promise each new day brings. We ask that you bless the men and women of this agency for the effort they put forth each day on behalf of all the sportsmen and women and those who enjoy our state's wild places. Guide our deliberations and decisions here today, and that they may be pleasing in your sight, for we understand the responsibilities we have in being good stewards of all that you have provided. We want to thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon each of us individually, as well as our families, and further ask that you keep us ever mindful of those less fortunate and grant us the compassion to always offer those in need, especially in this holy week of Easter. Lord, we have a special acknowledgement and request this morning as our good friend, co-worker, and colleague, Doug Howell, passed away this past Tuesday. Doug served this commission and the citizens of this state for 25 years with distinction, dedication, and passion that has emphasized not only wild waterfowl, but the birds that you have so richly provided. We ask that you give Doug's family comfort, realizing that through your grace, he will find peace. And finally, we ask that you bless and keep safe the men and women of law enforcement and the armed services who sacrifice so much that we may be here today freely offering this prayer in your name. Amen.
This time I'd recognize Margo Lincoln to do a roll call. Margo.
Good morning. I'm going to do a roll call for commissioners present for our April 17th, 2025 meeting. Chairman Monty Crump.
Here.
Vice Chairman Mark Craig.
Here.
David Hoyle.
Here.
John Coley. Wes Seegers.
Here.
Tommy Fumble.
Here.
Tom Berry.
Here.
Brad Stanback.
Here.
Jim Ruffin.
Here.
Ray Clifton.
Here.
Kelly Davis. Here. Steve Wyndham. Landon Zimmer.
Here.
John Stone. Hayden Rogers. John Alexander. Tom Hayslip. J.C. Cole.
Yeah.
Mike Alford. Joe Budd.
Here.
Reed Smith. Mr. Chairman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Margo. North Carolina General Statute 138A-15 mandates that the commission chair shall remind all commissioners their duty to avoid conflict of interest, appearances of conflict under the chapter, and that the chair also requires as to whether there is any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before the committee. It is the duty of each commissioner who is aware of such personal conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict to notify the chairman of the same. I think we do have a recognition today. Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the interest of creating the conflict of appearance of a conflict, I'd like to recuse myself from one of those for the land use committee. Break out that it's DOT segment as well. Yes.
Are you asking for exemption for?
Do you want to just separate that out?
Noted for the record. Thank you. In your packet, it was distributed to the commission, staff, who had the minutes of February 7th, 2020 meetings. This time, are there any comments, or questions, or changes about those minutes? Motion to approve. Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Got that? Motion. Second to approve. February 6th, 2025 is presented. All those in favor say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's approved. At this time, I'd like to recognize Jason Kyle, Chief Financial Officer, to give us a financial strategy report. Jason, before we go.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to remind everybody before we begin, the first three slides you'll see will be data as of February 28th of this year. The fourth slide will be a flashback to the prior year, and I'll explain that when we get there. So as of February 28th of 2025, In our general fund category, our overall revenues were $113,572,469.87. Excuse me. Our total expenditures in the same were $114,998,138.96, leaving us an overall fund balance as of February 28th of $27,317,201.27. In our capital improvement category for the same time period, we had a total revenue year to date as of $6,313,473.94. Our total expenditures in the capital improvement category was $6,043,468.72, leaving us with an overall fund balance of $4,959,557.74. When we last met, we did a little bit of a deeper dive into some of these categories. So I didn't do that again this time because it kind of would have been redundant. There would have been no material changes. If there's no questions about this data, I'll move on to the next slide. All right, looking at our endowment fund again, as of February of this year, ending balance is $210,029,416.32. Our asset allocation continues to hover at around 85-15. We're actually at about 84% as of February in equities, and 15 or just shy of 16% in our short-term investment. That orange slice that you see there, that's about $33 million. Our total expendable income as of February was $76 million, 76.3, if you will. As I always do, I factored out the obligations that we have foresee for the coming years, and that remaining balance to be expended would be $43.3 million. As I talked about yesterday, these known obligations that you see here again, next 3 years. So I think we've got sufficient cash on hand, protected somewhat from market volatility to meet those obligations. We'll continue to assess the performance of the fund, and should either our obligations change or the fund balance, we can reassess at that time to see whether we want to change. The next slide that you'll see is as of December 31st of 24. This was the expendable income earned on the endowment's investment fund for that calendar year. This is a refresh of what was presented yesterday afternoon during the committee of the whole. This is for your all's review and approval for that $20.6 million to be recognized and approved as expendable income earned.
Any questions or comments? We went over this yesterday to make sure we safeguarded our funding from our obligations to.
Or any potential volatility for whatever causes.
That's what our intent a year or so ago.
Yes, I think we've got sufficient amount secured this time.
Very good. Questions?
Very good. That's it. Thank you all.
We need a motion and a second for approval of Exhibit C.
So moved.
Second. Right, motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the approval of Exhibit C, which is the investment income allocation for 2024, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. At this time, we'll move forward with committee reports. The first one up, I recognize the Migratory Birds and Waterfowl Committee. We have Seegers, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Migratory Bird and Waterfowl Committee met Wednesday, April the 16th at 9 o'clock. Wildlife Chief Brad Howard presented the federal migratory bird hunting season framework and staff recommendation for migratory bird hunting seasons, including special falconry season. Next, Brad presented staff recommendation for the peregrine falcon tape and use in falconry. Brad then provided a brief overview of the federal migratory bird regulation development process, and specifically the Atlantic Flyway Council's part in development of those regulations. Having no further business, this meeting was adjourned.
Any comments, questions? For Migratory Birds and Waterfowl Committee? Hearing none, Quest, you're on deck as Chair of the Rules.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the Rules Committee met yesterday for review of the 2026-2027 annual rule cycle proposals for inland fish, land and water access, and wildlife management. All the proposals move forward to rulemaking in June. Next, the committee received an update on the captivity rule amendments and stakeholder process. Additional information was also provided to Wildlife Service agent rules readoption and the release of 4 rules subject to legislative review this session. Having no further business, the meeting was adjourned.
Any questions or comment on the report? Rules Committee. Hearing none, we'll move forward to voting to Land Acquisition and Property Committee, Vice Chair Brandon Stanley.
Land Acquisition and Property Committee met at 11 a.m. on April 16, 2025. Committee began by reviewing 9 Phase 1 land acquisition proposals totaling just over 3,000 acres. Committee voted to approve and move these 9 proposals forward for further consideration. The committee also approved 2 Phase 2 land acquisition proposals, including a hatchery purchase in Transylvania County and a land donation from Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy. Lastly, 4 other property matters were considered and approved. Committee adjourned at 11:35 a.m.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, Land Acquisition Property Committee? Hearing none, move forward to Voting Safety Committee, Chairman J.C. Cole.
Mr. Chairman, Public Safety Committee met yesterday afternoon, Bessie Goodwood, our coordinator of Park Committee, to propose permanent rulemaking adoptions for Craven, Person, Caswell counties. It then presented proposed rulemaking notice for the text for Caldwell. These will all be presented at exhibits later this morning for consideration. There will be no further.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any comments or questions regarding Voting Safety Committee report? Hearing none, we'll move forward to the report of committee of the whole, which I will give. Committee of the whole met yesterday afternoon. Jason Powell, Chief Financial Officer, provided an update on the endowment fund, presented the amount of expendable income earned 2024. He also led the discussion regarding the endowment fund's investment allocation and with sufficient expendable cash available to meet emergency needs for the next 36 months. Committee decided to maintain the current allocation. Carrie Rubin, Rulemaking Coordinator, presented proposed permanent rulemaking options for rules related to youth definitions and deer season. She then presented proposed temporary rulemaking adoption for sea trout harvest closure. Following the discussion, the committee recommended extending the harvest closure till June 30th. Carrie continued with proposed temporary rulemaking notices of text for sea trout size and creel limits and activities on Duluth's private Pisgah game. These rulemaking items will be presented as exhibits later this morning. Here was joined by Captain Jewell, lead social scientist, provide an update of the Conservation Access Pass. After a very robust discussion, the committee asked staff to develop possible pass options for consideration at a later meeting. Shannon Deaton, Chief Conservation Division Chief, gave an overview of the process underway to revise the North Carolina Wildlife Action Plan, including to solicit public input starting in early May. Darren Barnes, Land and Water Access Division Chief, provided an update. Black Cove Complex, Executive Director Briggs shared that the staff are collaborating with the U.S. Forest Service for the potential agreement for Hurricane Helene, recovery work on Pisgah and Navajo National Forest. Finally, Tamara Zamunda, our General Counsel, provided a positive update, recent Court of Appeal decision, Oates case. Being no further business, committee adjourned. Mindful, any comments or questions made to that? So then we'll reiterate the report that we got from Darren about our, and we had 131 4 weeks ago. They're not necessarily part of their job description. We're not going to have fight to find our complex service. Just like our folks did with Helene, we're proud of our staff for what they do beyond call of duty to serve our state. Fellow citizens, our hats off to that. All those did make that. Those comments check it out. Gary, comments? Here, none, we'll move forward. This time I recognize Gary Garner, Chief, and do some speakers to provide a presentation on capital improvements and construction.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're excited to have the opportunity today to kind of share a lot of the project work that the engineering division's been doing to help accomplish the agency mission. This will be co-presented. First, we've got Jim Sullivan. Jim is one of our civil engineers. He's a licensed PE. He's been with the agency about 3 years, but he's got almost 25 years experience between North Carolina DOT and helping run the engineering and geomatics program at AB Tech in Asheville. Jody Revis just came to us back in November as our capital improvements coordinator, but he's got over 26 years of experience doing facilities maintenance and capital improvements with state parks. So enjoy this guy's presentation and I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate the introduction there. Thanks for having us. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share some of our projects with you. I will tell you that I love talking about my work. I enjoy my job, so I've given Jody permission to nudge me out of the way if I go over on time. I'm one of 5 civil engineers. We really start from the very beginning of the projects. We'll go in and do a site assessment, a pretty holistic assessment. We'll work with the HAPCon folks, the inland fisheries folks to develop kind of a good feel for whether the site's going to work well for us, whether we're going to have any permitting issues, anything like that. We'll go ahead and do the permitting, environmental review, all that kind of stuff. And then move forward with design if the conditions warrant, and then manage the construction. We do have, this is just a quick overview, but we have 3 in-house construction crews, just fabulous teams. They do very good work. We're very proud to be part of their work. And then construction projects manager Dean Barbie also manages them. And I think Jody will talk about most of the rest of these folks. So I'm really going to talk about our accesses, so public fishing accesses and boating access. So our PFAs, as we call them, 129 of those across the state. Most of those are floating piers. We do have a few fixed platforms where site conditions warrant, but most of them are floating pier sections. Anna Stefanowicz was kind enough to get us this map showing the geographical distribution of the facilities and also where they're at in terms of the ownership of the parcels. I found it kind of interesting that about half of them are actually designated as local, which means they're on a municipal or county land typically. So first example is a floating fishing pier. This is Black Bear PFA up on Lake James. Just behind it is the Black Bear Day Use Area that was developed by Duke Energy as part of their FERC relicensing agreement. And so they left a spot here for us. And what you see here is a fairly typical floating pier configuration. These are modular sections that are constructed up at Dan River under our WISE program and then just configured to meet site conditions. So here you can see we've got about 4 sections leading out to the floating fishing platform and 3 that compose the platform itself. This is the view that you get from the sidewalk. This was assembled by our balsam crew with some help from the LAWA staff. So these are truly a team effort and happy to have their assistance with these. King's Landing is an example of a fixed pier section. This was, I believe, town of Murfreesboro partnered with us on this one. They had this old site that they acquired in 2013 and wanted to develop into a fishing access. But they had a request that it be accessible. So that meant it had to be meet the ADA guidelines, Americans with Disabilities Act. And so that restricted some of the options. You can see in this picture sort of the elevation difference between the parking area and the river level. And just because the grade is restricted by that ADA requirement, the slope on the walkway out, that led my colleague Michael to consider a fixed pier option for this particular location. This is Valdez Lakeside Park, another challenge with the topography, and also this is part of Valdez's park and greenway system. So you know, they wanted it to be accessible as well. So, and you can kind of see from the number of stairs there that there's a pretty significant elevation difference here. So just another approach where my colleague Steve decided to use a fairly long ramp sidewalk there to meet the grade requirement. And then if you flip around 180 degrees here, you'll see that leads to the fishing pier, sort of similar to what you saw at Black Bear. But Steve also added on an accessible kayak launch platform here. And I've got another picture from another project that just shows kind of a closer look at that. So folks with mobility issues can easily launch their kayaks and canoes as well. And that's a nice segue into our boating access areas. 391 of those, both motorized and non-motorized. I'll show examples of both here. So again, geographic distribution provided by Anna, as well as ownership. So this is Delight Road boating access. This is out in Cleveland County, a partnership with Cleveland Water. And this one, as are most of our boating access facilities, is going to be gravel parking lot. So to make it accessible, we had to have the sidewalk, which is what the That's the Rhodes Pond crew. They're placing the concrete for the sidewalk, and you'll see to the right there, the ADA parking space. So those parts need to be either asphalt or concrete for the accessibility component. And then the rest is just a gravel parking lot. If we flip around 180 degrees, you see the actual, what we call the non-motorized boat launch or step launch. And this is pretty typical of what we do. You see timber frame with concrete infill, a couple of slides there just to help folks pull their canoes or kayaks up from the river without digging up the boat, and handrails on both sides just for stability. And this is kind of an aerial shot. This is actually Highway 10, which is close and pretty similar in design to the Delight Road boating access also in Cleveland County, but gives you a nice overview of what the site looks like from above. This is North Bend boating access. My colleague Jeff worked on this one. This is originally a nursery property, tree nursery property that was acquired by Duke and later donated to the state. So this is right at the beginning of the project. This is a good example of a motorized access, the traditional boat ramp. So you can see they've just done the clearing here and installed the silt fence for erosion control. Here they're working on the ramp. Typically we'll pour these in about 30, 40 foot sections, one at a time. While one section's curing, they form up and get the reinforcing steel in for the next one. And then typically about a week later, they'll pour the next section. So this is the balsam crew, again, with help from the LAWA staff out of Morganton Depot. Again, a team effort. And this is what it looks like today. This one, because of the funding from Duke, we actually had funds to work with DOT contractors to get this site paved. So this one's paved, and you can see a really nice looking boat ramp there. So that's, again, an example of our motorized facilities. And I'll leave you with Surf City BAA. This actually just finished up this week. So I've got pictures of it in progress here, but it's open for the public now. This was a renovation project, so not new construction. The old site had become aged and weathered. And so my colleague Michael worked on this one and essentially putting the boat ramp back in the same place it was. You'll notice on the left side, the boardwalk there has been reconfigured a little just to kind of direct pedestrians away from the conflict zone where people are loading and unloading their boats, try to keep the pedestrians safe. So that was a nice improvement to the site. And this is one of the final placements. This is the Chinkopin crew doing one of the final concrete placements before it opened this week, as I mentioned earlier. And I just wanted to mention real quick, the SOBA, States Organization for Boating Access, that is basically an agency that facilitates and advocates for boating access nationwide. And they also provide the design guidelines that we use, and also have a annual symposium, which the state of North Carolina hosted in Wilmington last year. But just wanted to show you that we're very well recognized as an outstanding program, and a number of our projects have been awarded different awards by SOBA. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Jody. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. As Jim mentioned earlier, Jody Revis, I'm the capital improvements coordinator for the commission. Along with Jason Sellers, my counterpart in the eastern part of the state, we tackle the larger projects in the state. Listed out here are some of the accomplishments we made in 2024, and I want to highlight each of those coming up. The Burnsville Depot was finished up last year, 4,000 square feet. New facility that houses office space, maintenance area, and a necropsy room for CWD testing. Much needed facility there in Burnsville area. The Bones Creek restoration project along the stream at Peckman Fishing Education Center was completed this summer as well. Stabilize the impoundments and provide aquatic passage in that stream was a great addition to that facility. The McKinney Lake residence, 2,700 square feet residence built there at the hatchery for staff to provide 24-hour access there for the facility, and great addition to that hatchery. And of course, Samarkand, that's a big name. That is the first class is in session now, and we are finalizing and accepting it 100% on May 1st. We'll take full possession of that building, and the facility houses training facilities for fitness, classrooms, office space. It also has 40 dorm rooms for recruits and instructors. And you can just see the mass size of the facility there. Great addition for the commission. As you know, Hurricane Helene damaged Armstrong Hatchery, and that was one of the projects we weren't expecting this year. This is the lower raceways of the hatchery. It is up and operational. They are able to finish out fish there at that facility and use that as a transition for now. The upper raceways are still being cleaned and structurally stabilized to get that back up and going. We hope to have all that finished by fall of this year. Looking ahead, this is always, this is just a list of a few of the highlights, but looking ahead for 2025 and beyond, got several projects that are under design, ready to go out to bid, some under construction. The few that I want to look at highlight today is just these right here. And I want to, of course, the Setzer Hatchery put on hold for Hurricane Helene. It was scheduled to go to bid at the same time that the hurricane hit. So we held off on that. That's one of the largest projects the commission has undertaken, and hopefully be under bid and by fall of this year. Outfall Canal. This is a major project that the commission is working with multiple agencies and landowners. 8 miles of the canal. We're looking at dredging. The process is long. We hope to have this finalized and be able to go to bid sometime in the fall, winter of 2025. And at the same location, Gold Rock Game Lands on the canal. This is an image of the existing bridge wood structure. We just started construction on a new concrete, more sustainable crossing there. It's 107 feet long. And as you can see, this has multiple pilings along the canal. The new one will only have 3. So it'll open up the passage of the canal, plus give us a more sustainable bridge for the future. And the last one is Sykes Depot. They're getting a aquatics greenhouse. When you think greenhouse, you think plants. Well, this is plants, but it's more on the aquatic side. This was just a bid and approved, so hopefully we'll be breaking ground. It's a 30 by 100 foot greenhouse at that facility. Hope to be breaking ground construction in the next 30 days on that one. And with that, I'll leave you with questions for Jim or I or the section.
Any questions for any commission comments?
I got a couple. By the way, thank you very much. It's very interesting. We got a lot of great projects. That points them out. Just a quick mention, we've got a Newbern project where Wildlife Habitat Foundation, in conjunction with the commission and the town of Newbern, it's a great fishing pier project. What's the latest on that? The other day.
That one, we've been working with the town. We'd sent them some designs, some different ideas. Honestly, hadn't heard anything back from them. And then ironically, I just saw this week, they're moving forward without us building that. It's under construction now. So that's I just found that news out this week. Yeah. It's under construction now. Yeah. Saw where the town posted on their website that they've got that underway.
Anyway, a lot of these projects, the prefab work's done in Castle County, is that right? And then moved to different locations?
Yes, sir. So we presented a couple years ago on our WISE facility, the Wildlife Inmate Services. So one of my employees runs that facility with prison labor. So all the kiosks, fishing piers, the floating docks for the BAAs are all prefab there, basically in standardized sections. So then the engineering team takes that and just adds those into the existing projects they do.
And funding for this stuff is in staff, is it, which pile of money does it come out of?
So it depends what we're working on. It's all different buckets of money. The boating access areas have the, sport fish money, but then there's different segments of sport fish. Whether it's motorized, non-motorized, how we match depends whether it comes from vessel receipt funds or license receipts. A lot of the capital improvement stuff with the depots, the hatcheries, that type of stuff has various funding. They'll use a lot of the PR money on the depots partially. Of course, endowment is paying for a lot of Setzer and Samarkand, so we're creative depending on the need of where the funds come from.
Who determines where, why it comes out of what file?
A lot of it is kind of dictated by the limitations on the grant funds. And then if it's endowment or those type of things, the director's office will work with the divisions to decide the best use of the funds.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Somebody answer the question.
Anything else?
Welcome. Just wanted to say, I'm excited to see the work at Mebane with the aquatics nursery. I have visited there. I've been with the crew doing some aquatic restoration. Great work going on for aquatic habitats and species. So hats off on a nice project there.
The project came in a lot more expensive than anybody hoped for, but we're finally able to move forward. So
It's great.
Anything else? We have mentioned lining up a meeting to go to Samarkand now that everything is resolved. There's what we take possession of it shortly. And landscape issues, other stuff I'm taking care of, we'll be scheduling a commission meeting there. I mean, a dedication, ribbon cutting ceremony. Very soon. Or anything else? Gentlemen, great presentation. Thank you very much. Very important. And then we'll move forward with our rulemaking, and after staff, we've got a lot to go through, page and a half or so. When we get through, as usual, I'll ask for a motion on the second on the exhibits we need to approve, and we'll move forward that way. Brad, you up first. Wildlife Management Division.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to present, I have two different exhibits to present. The first deals with the webless migratory bird and resident Canada geese, extended falconry and waterfowl seasons for 25-26. Exhibits D3 and D4, the voting exhibits. I assume we want to take those together, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman. Okay. As soon as we get to them, we need bookmarks in this thing. No, you haven't got to D. So I'll go ahead and present while we're waiting on this to come up. Just keep going. Exhibit D3 presents the federal frameworks for the migratory bird seasons and the proposed federal frameworks and the Wildlife Management Division staff recommendations for our waterfowl seasons, webless migratory bird seasons, and all those, and staff recommends adoption of these as presented.
So you're asking for D2 at this time now?
Well, it's D2 was just comments. D3 is the voting exhibit, and then exhibit D4.
D3 and D4, we need motion second on these.
Yeah. And let me, D4 is the staff recommendations for the extended falconry season as part of the federal frameworks for the migratory game bird hunting. And yes, sir, that's it.
Motion second, approval adoption of D3 and D4. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the adoption of D3 and D4 is presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. You'll move forward to the peregrine falcon.
Yes, sir. Exhibit E deals with the staff recommendations in the federal frameworks for the take of migrant peregrine falcons for use in falconry. Staff recommends adoption of these recommendations with the stipulations as presented in the exhibit.
Motion second for adoption of exhibit E. So moved. Second. Motion second. Got that? Any further comments or questions, debate? Hear none, all those in favor of the adoption of exhibit E, the peregrine falconry rules, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This time I'll recognize Ben Solomon, phase 2 land acquisition. Here's back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Land Acquisition and Property Committee matters today will include 2 phase 2 proposals and 4 other property matters. We'll begin with our phase 2s. The first is the Harris Cove tract. This is a 205-acre property in Madison County. This will be in addition to Pisgah Game Land, and this will be a donation from Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy. Exhibit F2 is the Gladdy Fork Fish Hatchery. This will be a new fish hatchery in Transylvania County, property totaling 11 acres. We propose to purchase with $1,325,000 of endowment fund. And that concludes our phase two proposals from our April meeting. Staff and the Land Acquisition and Property Committee would like to recommend approval of exhibits F1 and F2.
Have a motion and second for the adoption approval of exhibits F1 and F2 is presented. So moved. Second on Barry, second who? Ben Rupp. Have a motion and second for the adoption of F1 and F2 as presented. Any further discussion? Hear none, all those in favor of the adoption of exhibit F1 and F2 is presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Other property matters, we'll break this one out, so cause a land refusal, so go ahead and move forward, please.
Yes, sir. We'll begin and present exhibit G1. This is the NCDOT trade in Dare and Terrell counties. This will benefit the upcoming NCDOT bridge replacement as well as provide a new boating access area for the Wildlife Commission in this trade. Staff and the Land Acquisition and Property Committee recommend approval of exhibit G1.
Entertain the motion and second adoption of exhibit G1. Motion, Kelly, second, Jim Rupp. Any further discussion? Hear none, all those in favor of the adoption of G1, you see a DOT request, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
We'll move forward with exhibits G2, G3, and G4. Exhibit G2 is the Duke Energy Foothills Trail lease renewal. We're proposing a lease term of 30 years. Exhibit G3 is a easement disposition in Avery County. This is for the Cranberry Iron Mine property. This is in partnership with Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy. And exhibit G4 is an easement request at Holly Shelter Game Land. An easement granted to a private landowner in exchange for an administrative access easement granted to the commission. Staff and the Land Acquisition and Property Committee would like to recommend approval of exhibits G2, G3, and G4.
Time I've entertained the motion second for adoption G2, G3, G4 presented, Tom Barrett and Joe Bud. Motion in a second. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor of the motion is presented to adopt G2, G3, G4, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jesse Haywood, Rule Safety and Water Safety Rules Coordinator, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Yesterday in the Boating Safety Committee meeting, we reviewed 3 exhibits, and with your permission, I'd like to take the first 2 first. They are final adoptions, and then finally, the third one is a request for notice of text. First, in 15A, NCAC 10F.0347, Craven County, we are recommending that you amend the current rule to establish a no-wake zone shore to shore in a portion of Bryce Creek to mitigate hazards to boater safety. And the text with some technical corrections to text and numbering can be found in the exhibit. And we will recommend that you adopt this text with changes since it was published in the NCR. And then secondly, 15A NCAC 10F.0368, Caswell and Person counties. And this is simply a request by the agency to amend the rule to designate the responsibility for placement and maintenance of markers on Hyco Lake to the boards of commissioners of Caswell and Person counties. And this is revised text with a correction since it was published in the NC Register, and staff would like to recommend a motion to adopt these.
Entertain the motion to second for adoption of H2 and I2 as presented. Third, Cole and Rogers. Motion in second. Further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the adoption of the motion is presented to approve exhibits H2 and I2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Here. Okay, you want to do the permanent rulemaking notice of text?
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is 15A NCAC 10F.0338, Caldwell County. This is a request by the Wildlife Resources Commission after being notified by several boaters in that area that there were hazards at the Adam Klutz Bridge on Gunpowder Creek on Lake Hickory. And we asked for a matrix, and enforcement completed the matrix, which did show that the bridge is a very low one with pilings and the actual roadway of the bridge that has caused some boats to run into it, have their bimini tops ripped off, and actually some boats pulling people on inner tubes. The tubers have actually come into contact with the structure of the bridge because of it. And staff recommends a no-wake zone shore to shore there within 50 yards on both sides of the Adam Klutz Bridge to mitigate these hazards to boater safety.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion second. Of Exhibit J, which will take this notice of text. So moved. Right, got that. All those in favor of the motion to adopt Exhibit J is presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This time I'll call on a rulemaking coordinator. Okay, Rule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first rulemaking item I have for you today is the adoption of permanent changes to 10B, 10C, and 10D rules. These are in exhibits K1 and K2 of the agenda package. As discussed yesterday in the committee of the whole, the amendments will standardize the age of youth to individuals under the age of 16, and additional amendments to the deer rule will add a youth deer day so that there will be 2 instead of 1. At this time, staff recommend adoption of proposed changes.
Shall I entertain a motion? Adoption second, exhibits K2 and L2. So moved. Second. Second. Yep. Students. Right. Oh, sorry, go there. Sorry.
Next.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have temporary amendments to Rule 10C for adoption. This is exhibits L1 and L2 in your agenda package. As discussed yesterday, these proposed amendments to the sea trout rule align the season closure in waters within our jurisdiction to the DMF closure. And the closure date has been extended from June 15th to June 30th to align with DMF's most recent proclamation. So if approved, this amendment will expire on June 30th. Staff recommend adoption of this temporary amendment.
So we have a motion on the floor now to adopt both the motion in a second. So it's any further discussion on the motion to adopt K2 and L2. Here none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Adopt.
All right, so the next 2 are temporary rulemaking notice of text. First, we have more amendments to the sea trout rule 10C0325. This is exhibit M. As discussed at yesterday's meeting, these amendments will align slot and creel limits to DMF's anticipated proclamation. And then in exhibit N, this is for temporary amendments to rule 10D0260 Pisgah Game Land to prohibit activities other than hunting, fishing, and trapping, and authorize use of trails and parking areas on the left tract of the Wilson's Creek corridor. And as we discussed yesterday, this is being proposed as a temporary rule at this time to be in place during the summer months. Staff recommend noticing temporary amendments in exhibits M and N and opening the public comment period.
Accept the motion, a second for the approval adoption of exhibits M and N is presented. So moved. Okay. Brad, stand back. Motion is second. Second. Any further comments or discussion? See none, all those in favor of adopting exhibits M and N, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much. Comments by the chairman. This time of year, we have to do a statement of economic impact. Just our commissioners to stay current on these. Margo does a good job reminding us you that still need to have a little attention to. Let's take a look at our ethics training. Following our statement of interest. Appreciate you doing that. I want to echo with Susan's comments and prayer about Doug. He's a consummate professional, made contributions. This agency really last a long, long time. I always trust his judgment, his demeanor, great forward. He just proud of him. How he led his commission. And we're everybody. He went on our last trip to Canada to the EU. He was a jewel and very knowledgeable. He would definitely be a
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start off just briefly thank commissioners for all the work, not only at the commission meeting, committee meetings, just what everybody sees, but all the work that nobody sees, all the reading that y'all do and all the phone calls you take. Staff appreciate everything y'all do, and I certainly appreciate it. And then I want to echo some comments previously made, Mr. Chairman, especially the ones you made, recognizing the land and water access staff and all enforcement staff that worked so hard during the wildfires in the western part of the state. Those folks were doing dangerous work that they weren't necessarily trained for, but that they have training doing similar work. And those folks did yeoman's work. They saved lives, they saved property. And I can't say how proud I am of all of them. And then lastly, I do want to echo the comments about Doug. Doug was a friend of mine. Certainly gonna miss him, but it's not just Doug. We've had a bit of a bad run here the last few weeks as far as wildlife goes. We've had losses of not just Doug, but also of a family of commissioners, family of staff, and some partners as well. So all of us are saddened by those losses and appreciate all the thoughts for those families. That's all I have.
Any further comments or questions from any member of Wildlife Commission? You're none, being adjourned.